Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavi Hori. Ubijana Balava Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Balava Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Pajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Pajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Jamuna Tiravana Chari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihori. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihori. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Shri Advaita Radha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Hari Bol. Back to home, back to Godhead. Hare Rama, oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go, 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 Hari Bol. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Haribo, Haribo, go, Haribo. I go, Haribo, 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 go, Haribo. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya 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 Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Join Nitya Lila Bhavishum Shumpa Saburi Rajikacharya. Which started the Rishi Shimari Divine Loving Grace Sikh Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Charya, BBD founder Charya, Save the whole world, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Join Nitya Lila Bhavishum Shumpa Saburi Rajikacharya started the Rishi Shimari. Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Premti Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gauda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Govinda, Shama Gundarada Kunigiri Govardhana Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Namadi Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Yudharma Harinam Sankirtan Yogi Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Most Merciful Lordships, Shri Gaurnitai, Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Radha Shyama Sundar Ki Jai, Gomata Goseva Ki Jai, Sam Veda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Krishna Balaram Temple Ki Jai. All glories is sama devotees. All glories is sama devotees. All glories is sama devotees. All glories Lord Sri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we're reading Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 6, entitled Dhyana Yoga, and we'll be doing texts 9 and 10, right?
9.
Yeah, 9 and 10. There's no purport to 9. So we're doing 9 and 10. Suhṛn-mitrāry-udāsīna, madhyastha-dveṣya-bandhuṣu, sādhuṣv pāpeṣu, sama-buddhir, viśiṣyate, suhṛn-mitrāry-udāsīna, madhyastha-dveṣya-bandhuṣu, sādhuṣv pāpeṣu, sama-buddhir viśiṣyate, suhṛn-mitrāry-udāsīna, madhyastha-dveṣya-bandhuṣu, sādhuṣv pāpeṣu, sama-buddhir viśiṣyate, suhṛn-mitrāry-udāsīna, madhyastha-dveṣya-bandhuṣu, sādhuṣv pāpeṣu, sama-buddhir viśiṣyate. 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 Anyone else?
suhṛn-mitrāry-udāsīna,
Suhṛn-mitrāry-udāsīna,
madhyastha-dveṣya-bandhuṣu,
madhyastha-dveṣya-bandhuṣu, sādhuṣv pāpeṣu,
sama-buddhir viśiṣyate.
sama-buddhir viśiṣyate. Word for Mataji's? Okay. Word for word. Su-hṛt. To well-wishers by nature. Mitra. Benefactors with affection. Ari. Enemies. Udāsīna. Neutrals between belligerents. Madhyastha. Mediators between belligerents. Dveṣya. The envious. Bandhuṣu. And the relatives or well-wishers. Sādhuṣu. Under the pious. Api. As well as. Cha. And. Pāpeṣu. Unto the sinners. Sama-buddhir. Having equal intelligence. Viśiṣyate. Is far advanced. Translation. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious, and the sinners, all with an equal mind. Please repeat. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and sinners, all with an equal mind. Next verse. Yogi yunjita satatam matmanam rahasishtita ekakiyate chitatma nirasir aparigraha. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasishtita ekakiyate chitatma nirasir aparigraha. Word for word. Yogi, a transcendentalist. Yunjita. Must concentrate in Krishna consciousness. Satatam, constantly. Atmanam, himself, by body, mind, and self. Rahasi, in a secluded place. Shtitaha, being situated. Ekaki, alone. Yata chitta atma. Always careful in mind. Nirasihi. Without being attracted by anything else. Aparigraha. Free from the feeling of possessiveness. Translation: a transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place, and he should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Purport: Krishna is realized in different degrees as Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. Krishna consciousness means concisely to be always engaged in the transcendental, loving service of the Lord. But those who are attached to the impersonal Brahman or the localized supersoul are also partially Krishna conscious. Because the impersonal Brahman is a spiritual ray of Krishna, and the supersoul is their all-pervading partial expansion of Krishna. Thus, the impersonalist and the meditator are also indirectly Krishna conscious. A directly Krishna conscious person is the topmost transcendentalist, because such a devotee knows what is meant by Brahman and Paramatma. His knowledge of the absolute truth is perfect, where the impersonalist and the meditative yogi are imperfectly Krishna conscious. Nevertheless, all of these are instructed herewith to be constantly engaged in their particular pursuits, so that they may come to the highest perfection sooner or later. The first business of a transcendentalist is to keep the mind always on Krishna. One should always think of Krishna and not forget him, even for a moment. One should always think of Krishna and forget him, not forget him, even for a moment. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is called samadhi, or trance. In order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. He should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affect his realization. And in perfect determination, he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. All these perfections and precautions are perfectly executed when one is directly in Krishna consciousness, because direct Krishna consciousness means self-abnegation, where there is very little chance for material possessiveness. Srila Rupa Goswami characterizes Krishna consciousness in this way: Anashaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjate nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchate parid prapanchigataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshabi parityago vairagyam palgu katyate. Quote, when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time he accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, he who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. From Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. A Krishna conscious person well knows that everything belongs to Krishna, and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account, He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness and how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He is always aloof from material things because he is always transcendental, and he is always alone, having nothing to do with persons who are not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is the perfect yogi. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya-Manobhishnam Shtabitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Darati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parishana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Badan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Nirbando Jagapate Gopesha Gubika Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanshikaupadurubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I was born in the darkest depths of ignorance, but my eternal spiritual master, Om Vishnu Pa Paramhamsa, Parivrajikacharya Stadasarishi Shiman, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada has forced my eyes open and is continuing to force my eyes open, which is the torchlight of knowledge. Therefore, I offer my most humble and respectful obeisance under his lotus feet. I would be completely lost without him. So this is continuation of Krishna's teachings in this chapter on dhyana yoga. Dhyana, of course, means meditation, also called Ashtanga yoga, the eightfold process of yoga, which is not practical in this age because it's Kali Yuga, and yogis take a long time to perfect. Satya Yuga, the golden age, it was people lived a lifetime of 100,000 years, and it says they were practically all yogis. There was no mode of passion or ignorance. It was all goodness, the entire planet. But what did that mean? They would have to meditate for 50, 60, who knows, 70, 80,000 years. Then some of them might become perfect and go back to Godhead. So Krishna is recommending this process of dhyana yoga, Ashtanga yoga, but he's also telling Arjuna that better than that is Krishna consciousness or work in bhakti yoga, where we're working, as explained in this verse, what is real renunciation? The term renunciation, you say, well, I renounce this. That means you had some proprietorship over it. What belongs to us? Nothing belongs to us. And so this very, very subtle principle of Krishna consciousness is the underpinning of our entire philosophy. And our whole life is centered around, like Prabhupada mentioned several times here, learning to accept what's favorable for our devotional service and reject what's unfavorable for our devotional service. And when we're able to do that, then Krishna becomes more and more present in our life. But it involves yoga. And there's universal principles of yoga, which are mentioned in the Bhagavad-Gita. Now, the yoga practice is centered around control of the mind. The most important, the essence of all of yoga. Because what does it say? When you conquer the mind, who do you conquer? Who is conquered when you conquer your mind? Krishna, your super soul. Because one attains tranquility. So this process of yoga, people think, I'm going to go to the yoga studio and do yoga. This isn't yoga. There's a few exercises that are good for health? They're good for health. That's why the yogis do them. Because yogi has to achieve good health. Otherwise, the mind is always disturbed. And he has to achieve that level of dhyana yoga. When the mind becomes controlled, the life airs become purified from the exercises. The mind subdues it gradually over a period of, what for us would be many lifetimes. Then gradually yogi starts meditating not on the void, but on the form of Krishna within the heart. And as he's meditating in this way, gradually meditating first on the lotus feet of the Lord, then up to his ankles, his knees, his calves, his hips, his waist, his chest, ending in the beautiful smile, beautiful face of the Lord. In that way, a yogi becomes perfect gradually, very, very gradually, a long, long time. And there's many dangers, pitfalls along the way. Yoga mystic powers. He can become smaller than the smallest, heavier than the heaviest. He can prapti. He can reach out and take whatever he wants from anywhere. This yogi in India, people, I'm sure you'll still remember Sai Baba. He had this mystic power. And it's said that somebody came to his home once, and Sai Baba greeted him and said, "Welcome, and please sit. Can I offer you something?" And he thought, this is a yogi. I'll try to trick him, test his mystic power. And so this is before the time when they had airplanes bringing everything from everywhere. So in India it was not mango season. And so they were out of season. You couldn't get a ripe mango. He said, "Yes, actually, I'd like a ripe mango." And Sai Baba said, "No problem, please sit down." So he reached behind his back. He pulled out a ripe mango. So with prapti, one can perceive something through his subtle body somewhere in the Himalayas or somewhere or some other part of the world, like a ripe mango. And he can actually, he's acquired the power to be able to grab it with his subtle mind, bring it and materialize it. People think, wow, maybe he's God, he can do amazing things. Somebody asked Prabhupada one time, they said, "Prabhupada, you're a very advanced yogi. I know you're a bhakti yogi. That means you have all the mystic powers. Like, what kind of mystic power do you have?" Thinking maybe Prabhupada would show him some cheap trick or something. Prabhupada said, "Aha, I have the greatest mystic power." Prabhupada said, "But what's that?" Prabhupada said, "I have the power to turn these low-born, meat-eating malechas into pure devotees of Krishna. That is the greatest mystic power." So we're not, so these are, the pitfalls of yoga. And I don't know what the percentage is, how many people become distracted. But it's not practical in this age. We are so incredibly fortunate. Just imagine our good fortune. You have taken birth in India, you're already so fortunate. Even the demigods in Srimad Bhagavatam, it says they're practically standing in line to take a birth in Bhartavarsha. You were all devotees in a previous life. But, Prabhupada went to the West to spread Krishna consciousness. And some of us took it up by some incredible stroke of good fortune. And with no qualification, we were able to take up this incredibly powerful transcendental process of Krishna consciousness. It's Kali Yuga, like Prayinao Payusha Shabya Kalivashmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagyu Padurita. We're Kali Yuga is infected with so many bad qualities. Learning when in this iron age, people have but short lives. They're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, and above all, always disturbed. It says in Kali Yuga to raise a family is so difficult. what to speak of spiritual realization. There's so many distractions. We live a very short life. Our senses are so powerful. How difficult is it to go into a room, like to try to quiet the mind and practice like what people try to do, like silent meditation? It's practically impossible. Someone appeared 500 years ago who changed all that. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have a wonderful service. I live in New Vrindavan, and I give tours of the palace, and I get to talk about Prabhupada all day long. And I've realized over time that, because I always, I was kind of disconnected in my consciousness. I'm thinking, well, Prabhupada came to America, this one man alone, but it's not a random, independent event. There's a whole nother transcendental reality happening that we can tap into. Because this process of Krishna consciousness, what does it mean? I mean, all these technical things of being detached from the senses, all these things, but what it actually means, Prabhupada says, we are becoming qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in our everyday activity. Because Krishna's already there. He's been there our whole lifetime. But we just haven't recognized it. And the more we recognize it, the more we can have Krishna in our life at every moment. So I realized that it wasn't a random event, Prabhupada coming in, and with Lord Chaitanya coming 500 years ago, everything has changed. Like, I joined the movement in 1972 in San Francisco, and at that time, nobody knew what yoga was. Nobody was doing meditation. There were hardly even any vegetarians. Everyone practically was a meat eater. Now, how many years ago was that? Over 50 years. Now there's so many open-minded, elevated personalities, not just in India, but in so many different countries. It must be amazing for those of you who live here in India and in Vrindavan. You see every day all these amazing devotees coming from Russia, from Ukraine, from Eastern Europe, from Europe, South America, so many different places, all enlightened souls. What happened? What happened over the last 50 years? Lord Chaitanya comes regularly. He comes regularly. So if you don't take the process up this time, no problem, you can take it up next time. Do you know when next time will be? 4,300,000,000 years from now. And Lord Chaitanya came 500 years ago. It's like he hasn't even left. And I try to remember that when I become a little lax in my Krishna consciousness. Or I forget. We have to always remember incredible good fortune that we have. And so, so Krishna here explains the whole process to Arjuna of controlling the mind. Of course, Arjuna says, how's it possible control the mind, Lord? It's like, a boat on the open water, just pulled away from the wind, with the wind from one direction to the other. The mind is like that. It is impossible to control. Krishna says it is very, very difficult. But it is possible by constant practice and detachment. So ours is not a mechanical process of controlling the mind. Actually, there is no real, in the strict sense of the word, control of the mind. We have to surrender to the control of Krishna. When we do that, our mind automatically comes under control. And if we practice accepting what's favorable for our devotional service and rejecting what's unfavorable then Krishna becomes more and more present in our life. Now it says one should live in a secluded place. Now what does that mean? That means we should go up into the Himalayas or move to the forest and get a little retreat way back in the woods and just chant by ourselves. It's not recommended. Although there were a couple of Madhajis who left Vrindavan because they were a little upset. It was Jamuna and one of her god sisters, and they were in Vrindavan. And these sannyasis were always criticizing them in different ways. And they got fed up, so they moved out. They moved way up into Oregon. They got a small house. And then the sannyasis started writing them letters and saying, you guys are in Maya. What are you doing out there alone in the woods? He said, you should be in the temple. So they wrote to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, are we in Maya? And they told them what happened in the temple. And they just, they were really berating them for no reason. And Prabhupada said, what's the use of association with hundreds of devotees if you're not like-minded? He said, association with devotees can be two. Just two. Like that. So our process is very simple, and it's so incredibly powerful. These associating, I just spent 3 weeks with Vaishesika Prabhu doing a Srimad Bhagavatam marathon. We were reading together for like 5 hours a day. And it's such an incredible process because Krishna is non-different from his vibration, from sound vibration. What does it say? Shrinvatam Shvakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Yabadrani Vidanuti Suritsatam. And I tell people when they take tour of the palace, I try to interest them in getting a Krishna book. And I tell them, when you sit down and read this is not, you're going to enjoy the stories because Krishna is all attractive. Even to our mundane hearing about these pastimes of Krishna, they're very attractive to the heart. But it's completely transcendental. And when we're sitting down reading, we're practicing yoga, like Prabhupada already mentioned in this verse here. We're not practicing any kind of yoga. We're practicing the highest kind of yoga. Because Krishna says in the last verse of this chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana sharvam bhajate yomam samayuktatamam mataha. The highest yogi, not as a yogi who's doing all kind of austerities and renunciation way up in the Himalayas in some cave. The highest yogi is simply him or her who thinks of me within their heart, thinking always how to serve me. And this is the highest form of Krishna consciousness. And when we do that, it says that Krishna acts as our best friend and clears away all these inauspicious things from within our heart automatically, just according to the process. We have to seriously apply ourselves to the process. And if there's some lack we feel in our Krishna consciousness, then we have to seriously analyze our practice and see where maybe we're becoming inattentive. So I'll read these two verses again. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. So I think we'll stop there. If anyone has any questions or comments or realizations they'd like to share, I'd be very eager to hear them. Yes, Manaji?
Yes, you were mentioning how in Satya-yuga the process was meditation. And I was wondering, because we always read in the Bhagavatam all these rishis and sages that go meditate in the forest, and they always have mantras like Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, but never the Hare Krishna mantra, and they seem to meditate all the time in Narayan. So I'm just wondering if the meditation of Krishna just came before Kali Yuga, or it was there before, because...
Yeah, well, it says that the mantra itself was already there. I think in the Santarani Upanishad or something, somebody can correct me. And, Brahmins were criticizing at the time of Lord Chaitanya. Said, you're giving this mantra, you're chanting this mantra to people who are not Brahmins. They can't chant this. So Lord Chaitanya just turned the mantra around. Instead of Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, which was there already in the Vedas, he turned it around. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, all these mantras are completely transcendental. You can chant Vishnu, you can chant Hare Krishna. They're all the same in one sense. Even Om is the same. We just read here in the verse, Prabhupada said Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. It's all Krishna, just different aspects of Krishna. So it says in the Vishnu Sahasranam that it says the name of Ram, the name Krishna equals three, potency-wise, three names of Ram. And the word Vishnu is, I think, if you chant Ram once, that's like chanting Vishnu's name like 1,000 times. And above and beyond all that, this mantra was given personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. That's why it's not any ordinary mantra. There's many, many mantras. People are doing rituals at home. They're chanting, this is the Maha Mantra. This is the greatest mantra for deliverance. We have no idea of the potency of this mantra. This mantra has the potency to bring us back to Godhead in this one lifetime if we apply ourselves. I hope that helped answer your question.
So it was chanted loudly just after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared? Before that it was a silent mantra?
It says that there was a loud chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, when Lord Chaitanya took his birth. But I'm not sure, some of his eternal associates were already there, like Advaita Acharya. So there must have been some chanting before he came, who by devotees somehow knew this would be coming, but I don't have any, there's no more details than that really in Prabhupada's books. Yes, sir.
If Lord Brahma quoted this mantra, that means it was that he quoted it before.
Yes. Yeah, of course. It's been there, but of course Lord Chaitanya popularized it and made it accessible to all of us, because before this nobody had access except probably Lord Brahma and the Brahmins. Right. Yes, Prabhuji.
Like this part of second verse. So my throat is not good. Like Prabhupada used this Yukta Vairagya. I think the started from 252. I think 51, 252. I think. So can you tell me something more about Yukta Vairagya? Because Yukta Vairagya is sometimes misused by the devotees. Like they start enjoying the name of Yukta Vairagya because this is the line. Because so how practically we can use properly Yukta Vairagya, like everything we hold for the Krishna and everything we are,
Yeah.
for the Krishna. So how practically, so that we don't start enjoying this on the name of Yukta Vairagya.
Yeah, that's a very good question. You know, we all have, as conditioned soul, we all have 4 defects. And one of those defects is the cheating principle. And the key in really understanding, being able to apply this verse is the spiritual master. Because it takes someone who's qualified to understand, what can be accepted, what is rejected, and what we can use in Krishna's service, like that. But we have to be also very introspective. I take it also in this verse when it talks about one should live in a solitary place, that we should be very introspective and we should find ourselves. And one of the most important things in the evolution of our Krishna consciousness at any given time is to understand where we are at currently in our Krishna consciousness. And as our Krishna consciousness comes more and more, because, we're actually in the process of reclaiming our original spiritual body. And Krishna is becoming more and more present in our life, depending on us. As yeyatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamya manavartin monusha partha sarvasa. Krishna says, as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. And so as we increase our desire for pure devotional service and our desire to become free from these deep anarthas that have kept us from Krishna consciousness for millions and millions of lifetimes, gradually Krishna becomes more and more present. And he directs us through Super Soul, which is also considered the form and direction of Krishna. Spiritual Master is considered a direct manifestation of Super Soul. And so we will also get direction through our intelligence to understand, what can be used in Krishna's service, what cannot. But if we're at all doubtful, then we should ask a senior devotee or our spiritual master. Or if he's not present, pray. Because Prabhupada is actually and I meet many people who tell me, they go, you're a Prabhupada disciple, or you're so fortunate. And I tell them, yes, I've become fortunate to take initiation from a spiritual master like Srila Prabhupada. But now I have to realize my good fortune. I am not at all qualified. And so, how is it, I often think about this, how is it the Krishna conscious movement is spreading still like wildfire all over the world? And as far as I know, there are many, and I'm not, don't want to offend anyone or anything, but there's as far as I can see from symptoms, there's only one Mahabhagavat that I've ever seen, and that's Srila Prabhupada. And the movement is spreading like wildfire all over the phone, all over the planet still. And Prabhupada, so many of his wonderful disciples are helping initiate disciples, and the movement is going on. That would not be possible if Prabhupada was not still present. And it says the spiritual master is even more present in his Vani, in his instructions and in his words, than in his physical presence. Well, I was here, of course, personally when Prabhupada was here, and I was able to meet with him personally. I actually had a small time. I was temple commander in Mayapur for a period of time in 1976. I had direct access to Prabhupada at that time. And it was just so amazing because when you came into Prabhupada's presence, unconsciously, Prabhupada would bring you up close to his level. But there's a sense of familiarity that comes from that. What do they say, familiarity? It breeds contempt. And one of the most, I would say, almost feelings of almost tragic when Prabhupada left the planet. Because we couldn't imagine Prabhupada would leave the planet. Nobody actually could imagine, like, how, like a movement without Srila Prabhupada personally here. And when he passed away, devotees were like, oh my God, because you could feel it. There were devotees who had no personal association with Prabhupada, but when Prabhupada left the planet, you could feel, because if he was on the planet, you knew, if push came to shove, worse was worse, you could write him a letter, or you could go wherever he was and get, direct association with him. But when he left the planet, and many of us thought, I blew it. I really blew it. I thought I knew who Srila Prabhupada was. I had no idea. It's like when Krishna was present 5,000 years ago, Prabhupada said almost nobody knew who he was. When I first heard that, I was like, how's that possible? All these really evolved souls, like compared to me, even the kshatriyas and things, so pious in so many ways, so many of them, and hardly anyone knew. Like maybe 99% of people didn't know he was. Why? Krishna acted like an ordinary person, like the friend of the Pandavas, an order carrier of Yudhisthira. And so Prabhupada, he's a pure devotee. And so he has like that quality like Krishna. And he was like, in a sense, more ordinary than ordinary. In the sense that an ordinary person who had no contact with Krishna consciousness, they'd be in Prabhupada's presence, they'd have this feeling, this is somehow my old friend or old relative, Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Any other questions, comments? Anyone like to share a realization? Please, I need all the enlightenment I can get.
Can you mention anything, your personal interaction with Prabhupada about that?
You want to hear a little story or two? Okay. So I joined the San Francisco Temple in 1972. I was a new brahmachari. And I knew philosophically that Srila Prabhupada was my spiritual master. But, those were the days of hippiedom. I was like a hippie before. And before I came to the movement, I was experimenting with drugs. And I was doing a little bit LSD here or there, trying to get out-of-body experiences and experience God. I was trying to reach God, but we were confused. But we wanted something, it's just the nature as human beings. We want to, see, taste, and feel things with our senses, including Krishna. And so I wanted some kind of a direct confirmation from Prabhupada that he is my eternal spiritual master. So I was invited to go on a morning walk. I was a new devotee in the temple, maybe 4 months. And it was hard to get on the walk, because even back then, they had GBCs, they had regional secretaries, they had sannyasis, and temple president, to go on the morning walk for new devotees. Somehow or other, I got invited. So I'm on the walk, and Prabhupada, of course, he'd be walking kind of slow. He'd walk around the neighborhood. He'd see things, and he'd make some comment on modern Western culture and related to Krishna consciousness, some different points. And he would walk and then he'd stop, plant his cane in the ground, he'd make a point. So I kept looking at Prabhupada and trying to get his gaze into my eyes. I think I wanted some kind of a mystical experience or something. But he kept avoiding my gaze. And he would stop and start talking, and I'd kind of move around the crowd, try to catch his vision, and then he'd look away. It was almost like, in a mundane sense, like Mother Yasoda trying to capture Krishna. No. On her terms, we can't capture God or his pure representative on our terms. So the whole walk, practically, Prabhupada was evading my vision, and I thought, it's not going to happen. I gave up the idea, and I was listening to what Prabhupada would say. All of a sudden, towards the end of the walk, I'm sure it was when I least expected it, Prabhupada planted the cane in the ground, looked up to make some kind of a point, and I can't say he looked directly at me. It was like he looked through me. And it was so powerful, I couldn't hold. I closed my eyes. And in that split second, when that happened, it felt like Prabhupada grabbed my soul and took me to the beginning of the time when I first came into the material world. And the next instant, he took me to the very end of my sojourn in the material world. And I opened my eyes. It was a mystical experience. What can I say? I opened my eyes and I had this absolute faith that Prabhupada is my eternal spiritual master and he knows everything about me since time immemorial until when I leave the material world. Not was he only my spiritual master, he's everyone's spiritual master. I'm not a Ritvik, but this is our philosophy. Prabhupada is everyone's Shiksha Guru. Vaishesika Prabhu, my dear friend, would often mention that we need to read Prabhupada's books. This is probably, if there could be one main problem in the movement nowadays, is that we're not reading Prabhupada's books enough. And he said the real reason we should read them isn't even for the knowledge. I mean, knowledge is important, it's good. As devotees, we should be knowledgeable. But that also, Krishna can reveal that, within our heart. The most important reason for reading Prabhupada's books is that Prabhupada is there in every single page. I'm sure most of you heard that story. Prabhupada was in one of his temples in India. I think it was in Mayapur. And a devotee came in, offered his obeisances, and Prabhupada was sitting down reading one of his books. And the devotee said, "Oh, Prabhupada, I'm sorry to disturb you, I apologize, but I have to ask you." He said, "You wrote these books." "Prabhupada, I'm just curious, you wrote these books and you're sitting in your room reading one of the books that you wrote. Like, why is that?" Prabhupada looked at him. "My book? I didn't write this. Krishna wrote these books." Prabhupada was like a scribe, and Krishna simply dictated to him. And because I give tours of Prabhupada's palace, it's helped me understand more deeply than ever before how completely inconceivable it is what Prabhupada did. And a lot of people think, Prabhupada wrote his commentaries, his purports, and they think that Prabhupada thought, okay, that's what Krishna said. Let's see, what should I say? Yeah, that makes sense. I'll write that down. No. As you know, Prabhupada would study the 6 to 8 previous Vaishnavacharyas. He would read their commentaries. He would memorize them. And then he would distill the essence of what he was saying. Prabhupada did not grow up in America. His grasp of Western psychology is astounding. And when you read his purport, he had to take all that ancient wisdom and the commentaries of the Acharyas and bring them into modern context. in such beautiful poetry. It is so incredible. I call it Prabhupada's one-liners. You can just literally take one sentence Prabhupada says, and you can meditate on that and nothing else your entire life. And if you are able to apply it, you would achieve perfection. It's so beautiful. Like, for example, he says, because, this concept of being a servant, especially in the West, it's, people aren't attractive. They're like, a servant? Like, who wants to be a servant? It's the land of the rugged individual. I want to be the master. But Prabhupada says, no. Servitude is the most congenial form of intimacy. And of course, we know it's so attractive. Krishna himself loves to serve his devotees. He expands as Balaram. Balaram expands as Krishna's paraphernalia, as the path Krishna walks down like that. So, anyway, that's about it for me. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, Mama. This hearing and reading and hearing Srila Prabhupada's books, that would be the same, isn't it? Hearing
and reading?
Because there's Srimad Bhagavatam, commentaries and everything, which are there online.
Yeah, one of the most important things about hearing chanting, in my opinion, is hearing and chanting in association with like-minded devotees. Yeah, if you're just hearing, that's good. And, that's also good. But that's why Prabhupada recommended Ishtagosi. Ishtagosi is actually when we get together and we read Prabhupada's books ourselves. And not only do we do it, everyone, the management, everyone does it. This creates proper management because as their management issues come up, we discuss them in the light of Prabhupada's books, we find solutions that we wouldn't have thought of normally. And we have to always apply ourselves to this process of hearing and chanting because it says it takes a long time. And it's transcendental. Our mind and senses and intelligence cannot conceive this transcendental sound vibration. So we have to continue to apply ourselves. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai. Gaura Bhakti Vinay ki jai. Vanchakopatarubhyascha kripasinibhyo vichaparitanam bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.